The email arrived at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, marked urgent with 3 red exclamation points. Emergency MWH meeting tomorrow 8 a.m. sharp. Location change. Vendor crisis. Need you ASAP, Scarlett. I stared at my phone screen in the dark, my stomach already knotting with the familiar dread that came with Scarlett's emergencies. In the 18 months since her engagement, I had become less of a best friend and more of an unpaid wedding planner. I met Scarlett Manning when we were both 22, fresh out of college, and working entry-level jobs in downtown Seattle. She was stunning in that effortless way that made people stop conversations when she walked into a room. Golden hair that caught light like silk, green eyes that sparkled with mischief, and a laugh that could make anyone feel special. I was the practical one, the reliable friend who remembered birthdays, kept track of plans, and made sure everyone got home safely. For 8 years, we had been inseparable. When Scarlett met James Montgomery at a charity gala 2 years ago, I was genuinely happy for her. He was handsome, successful, from one of Seattle's oldest and wealthiest families. The Montgomery name appeared on hospital wings and university buildings throughout the city. What I didn't expect was how completely I would disappear from Scarlett's life the moment she became Mrs. Montgomery to be. The morning meeting was at a trendy cafe with exposed brick and overpriced coffee. Scarlett was already there, laptop open, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing frantically. Her engagement ring caught the morning light, a 3-carat diamond that probably cost more than my annual salary. No, she was saying. The ceremony is in 3 days. You cannot tell me now that you can't deliver the white roses. She saw me approaching and mouthed crisis with wide, panicked eyes. Fixed, Scarlett announced, ending her call. My wedding planner found a backup supplier, but they're charging double. Daddy will have a heart attack when he sees the bill. I'm sure it will be beautiful, I said, though part of me wondered why we were having this emergency meeting if the crisis was already resolved. That's not why I called you here. Scarlett leaned forward. James's grandmother wants to meet you. I blinked, caught off guard. Meet me? Why? I don't know. She specifically asked about my maid of honor. It's a little strange, but you know how old wealthy families are. They want to know everyone in the wedding party. Eleanor Montgomery was a legend in Seattle social circles. 91 years old, sharper than people half her age, and the undisputed matriarch of one of the city's most influential families. She had controlled the family fortune with an iron fist for decades. When does she want to meet me? This afternoon. Tea at 4 at the family estate. The Montgomery estate sat on 15 acres overlooking Lake Washington, behind wrought iron gates that required a security code. The house was a sprawling Tudor mansion built in the 1920s, with ivy-covered walls and tall windows that reflected the afternoon sun like mirrors. Eleanor Montgomery was waiting in a sun-filled conservatory, sitting perfectly straight in a high-backed chair beside a table set for 3 with delicate china. She was smaller than I had imagined, but her presence filled the room. Silver-white hair swept into an elegant chignon, intelligent blue eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Scarlett, dear, she said, accepting kisses on both cheeks. You look lovely. Eleanor turned to me with frank curiosity. And you must be Natalie Harper. I've heard so much about you. We settled into our chairs, Eleanor pouring tea from a silver service. Her questions were polite but pointed, asking about my work, my family, my background with a precision that suggested she already knew most of the answers. Natalie's family owns a small bookstore in Bellingham, Scarlett offered when Eleanor asked about my parents. Very quaint. Her father teaches at the community college there. There was something in Scarlett's tone, a subtle condescension that made me wince. Eleanor seemed to notice the slight as well, her eyebrows raising almost imperceptibly. How wonderful. Independent bookstores are such treasures. I imagine your parents have quite an impact on their community. The conversation continued for another hour, Eleanor asking thoughtful questions and sharing stories from her decades of experience. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being evaluated, studied, measured against some invisible standard. As we prepared to leave, Eleanor placed a gentle hand on my arm. Natalie, I wonder if you might stay behind for just a moment? There's something I'd like to show you in the garden. Eleanor led me through French doors onto a stone terrace overlooking immaculately maintained gardens. We walked in comfortable silence until we reached a wrought iron bench beside a small fountain. Tell me honestly, she said, do you feel valued in your friendship with Scarlett? The question was so direct, so unexpected, that for a moment I couldn't speak. No one had ever asked me that before. She's my best friend, I said finally, though the words felt hollow. Eleanor nodded slowly. That wasn't what I asked. I looked down at my hands. Sometimes I feel more like an employee than a friend. Like I'm there to make her life easier, not because she genuinely wants me there. And yet you continue to give. She's going through a lot with the wedding. Everyone needs support, Eleanor said gently. But support should flow both ways in a true friendship. When was the last time Scarlett supported you through something difficult? I opened my mouth to answer, then closed it again. I couldn't remember. When my father had his heart attack 2 years ago, Scarlett had sent flowers, but never visited. When I had been laid off 6 months ago, she'd been too busy with wedding planning. I see that you understand, Eleanor said. You deserve better, my dear. The final 3 days before the wedding passed in a blur of crises and vendor negotiations. I coordinated with florists, managed seating chart disasters, and handled bridesmaids' meltdowns. The wedding day dawned clear and bright. I arrived at Scarlett's apartment at 6 a.m., armed with coffee, pastries, and a detailed timeline. The other bridesmaids trickled in over the next hour, all chattering excitedly about the day ahead. Natalie, can you handle the photographer situation? Scarlett called from her makeup chair. I spent 20 minutes negotiating with the wedding photographer about timing, then another hour coordinating with vendors to adjust schedules. The ceremony was everything Scarlett had dreamed of. 300 guests seated in white chairs, an altar arch covered in white roses, James waiting in his custom tuxedo. I walked down the aisle ahead of Scarlett, carrying white peonies that complemented the bridal flowers. During the reception cocktail hour, I coordinated with catering staff and resolved minor crises while the wedding party took photos. Eleanor found me during a quiet moment. You've been working hard all day, she observed. Have you had a chance to eat anything? We chatted briefly about the ceremony and the beautiful weather. Eleanor was warm and engaging, asking about my work with genuine interest. During dinner, Scarlett stood to make a speech. The room quieted as she tapped her champagne glass. Good evening, everyone. James and I are so grateful that all of you are here to celebrate with us tonight. She thanked her parents, James's family, and the wedding party. Then her eyes found me. And, of course, I have to thank Natalie, my maid of honor, who has been working so hard behind the scenes. She's basically been my personal wedding coordinator these past few months. It's been like having professional help, but better because she actually cares about getting everything perfect. Professional help, but better. The words echoed in my mind as applause erupted. I smiled and waved, feeling the sting of being reduced to hired help in front of 300 people. Around midnight, as the reception wound down, Eleanor approached me one final time. She led me onto the vineyard terrace, where the night air was cool and sweet. You handled today beautifully, Eleanor said. Everything ran perfectly, and I know that was largely due to your efforts. Thank you. It was important to me that Scarlett's day be everything she dreamed of. Eleanor turned to face me directly. I have something to tell you, Natalie, and I hope you'll hear me out completely. Something in her tone made me alert. Of course. 3 months ago, I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. I'm 91 years old, and I've lived a full life. I've decided not to pursue aggressive treatment. The doctors estimate I have perhaps 6 months remaining. Mrs. Montgomery, I'm so sorry. When you face mortality, you think about legacy. Not just money, but the impact you've had, the values you've passed on. She reached into her purse and withdrew an envelope. I've made some changes to my will, Natalie. I want you to have this. I stared at the envelope. Mrs. Montgomery, I can't accept anything from you. I know exactly who you are. You're the kind of person who shows up, who does the work, who makes sacrifices without expecting recognition. You deserve to be valued. She pressed the envelope into my hands. This contains information about a trust fund I've established in your name. $2 million to be yours unconditionally upon my death. I felt the blood drain from my face. I cannot accept this. Your family will be furious. James has more money than he could spend in lifetimes. This money comes from my personal accounts. It's mine to give as I choose. She smiled. Use it to build the life you truly want, not the life others expect you to live. Why me? Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. Because 65 years ago, I was you. I spent decades making myself indispensable to people who took me for granted. By the time I realized what I was doing, I had built a life that served everyone else's purposes but my own. I don't want that for you. Before I could respond, Scarlett appeared, still glowing but looking frayed after 12 hours of celebration. There you are. Nat, I need you to help me with something. The wedding planner is trying to get us to settle the final bill tonight, but some charges look wrong. Can you go through it with her? I looked at Eleanor, who gave me the slightest nod. Then I looked at Scarlett. Actually, I think the wedding planner can handle it. This is your wedding night, Scarlett. You should be celebrating with your husband. Scarlett's eyebrows rose in surprise. But you always handle these things. I know. But tonight, I'm just a guest at your wedding. Eleanor passed away on a Tuesday morning in November, 3 weeks before I was scheduled to leave for the Italian language program I had enrolled in. The trust fund transferred exactly as promised. $2 million, earning interest in carefully managed investments. When Scarlett found out about the inheritance through family gossip, she showed up at my apartment, furious and bewildered. You manipulated a dying old woman into leaving you money, she accused. I did nothing of the sort. Eleanor saw something in me that you never did. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm done being your unpaid assistant. I'm done making myself small so you can shine brighter. I'm moving to Florence to study art history, and I'm doing it with money left to me by someone who valued my worth. Scarlett stared at me like I was a stranger. 8 years of friendship, and you're throwing it all away for money. I'm not throwing away friendship, Scarlett. I'm walking away from employment that I mistook for friendship. 6 months later, I was sitting in a cafe in Florence, sketching the architecture of Santa Croce, while Italian conversations flowed around me like music. My phone buzzed with messages I didn't answer from people back home who couldn't understand why I had left my old life behind. But I understood. Eleanor had given me more than money. She had given me permission to value myself the way I had always valued others. The inheritance wasn't about wealth, it was about worth. My worth, finally recognized and honored by someone who understood what it meant to be seen. Sometimes the most powerful inheritance isn't what someone leaves you in their will. It's what they teach you about your own value, while they're still alive to see you claim it.